like to call this special board meeting to order and let the record show that all board members are present. And if you would stand with me for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we have 3 items that we need to address tonight. First one, 2.01, ending date for school. Dr. Riggs, or
we already have presented. I don't think there's any additional information, so it's just need action.
Okay. I would entertain a motion.
So moved. I'll be the popular.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the last day of school for 2010-2011 as June 3rd, 2011. Hopefully we won't get any more snow between now and then.
Clarify who made that motion, please.
Ms. Callan, I'm sorry, and second by Dr. Prater. Any other discussion? Dr. Holman?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Item number 2, 2.02, engineering and architectural modifications for air conditioning for York Elementary School.
Mr. Wendt, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Ritter. As mentioned, this is the air conditioning item for York Elementary. In mid-February, we advertised. We received bids on March 30th. At 9:30 a.m., we opened those bids. We received 4 bids were turned in. Only 3 of the bids met the requirement. One of the bidders did not turn in a required form with their bid. Our anticipated probable cost of construction was $1,250,000. The lowest responsible bid for the project was submitted by DeWitt and Associates for $1,206,000, and it will be funded by the 2009 bonds. And it is the recommendation of administration that the board accepts the bid of $1,206,000 from DeWitt and Associates for the York Elementary air conditioning project.
Any questions for Mr. Wendt? If not, I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Ms. Twitty, second by Ms. Callan, that the board accept the bid of $1,206,000 from DeWitt and Associates for York Elementary School. Any other questions? Mr. Hosmer?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Third item, just engineering and architectural firms for Boyd Elementary. Mr. Wendt.
In this action item for the Board Elementary air conditioning project, back in May of 2010, the board reviewed the selection process for engineering on the air conditioning projects for this bond series. ESC was the engineering architect that was selected for both the Boyd and the Sunshine projects. Recently, ESC has notified the district that they would not be able to meet the timelines for our Boyd Elementary for our schedule. And due to the time constraints for us and not being able to re-advertise, we went back to the original selection process to see if there were any of the engineers from that process that would be able to meet that time frame. We had 2 engineering firms that could meet that time frame, and through discussion with them, determined that MFEC would be the recommended engineering firm for this. We did review this with legal counsel. Again, it's funded from the 2009 bond series, and it would not be at any additional cost. The fees would remain the same, and it would be the recommendation that the board authorizes the superintendent or designee to enter into a contract with MFEC for the engineering architectural work for the Boyd Elementary air conditioning project. And may I also add, This is not any negative reflection in any way with ESC.
Questions for Mr. Wynn? Ms. Callen?
Just so I understand, they came to us knowing that we were on a very tight time frame to get these projects completed, and they knew that they weren't going to be able to meet.
Yeah, there'd been
Their
ongoing
deadline.
dialogue with us and ESC, yes.
Mr. Osmer?
Scott, one of the things that immediately kind of jumped out at me is that we're going back to a process that was completed nearly a year ago, and basically picking number 2, I guess, from that process. Do you know whether that's something that this board has been asked to do in the past, or is this something that is kind of new?
I do not believe that, not during my time with the district, that we have asked for that, and I don't know if it's been asked prior to. And for clarifications, it's not quite the same as picking number 2 to reevaluate any of those firms because of the timeline issue. So that's strictly what it came down to.
But this is all based on a process that was done in May of
Originally.
2010.
Originally for this series, yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
And what's been done to make sure that personnel has not changed at either one of these organizations, or I guess the bid climate hasn't changed, or is there something that's been done to kind of see whether or not what happened in May is still relevant today?
I'm not sure if I quite understand that question.
Well, I guess we went through a process a year ago and chose this firm based on that process.
Yeah, we went through a selection process for a group of firms.
Okay.
And basically, again, it would be a matter of going out through a whole nother selection process for me to really answer that question fairly. So in order to meet the time frame that we're working with, this was the only way that we could accomplish that.
Okay.
Well, and it's not really a bid, right?
No, it's professional services. So we go through a selection process. That's correct.
Any other questions for Mr. Wynn? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I move we authorize the contract with MFEC for the Boyd air conditioning.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Prater, second by Ms. Callen, to enter a contract with MFSC for engineering and architectural work. Any other questions? Dr. Holman?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wynn. All the items on the agenda.
I think if we have any more, I get shot. So.
Okay. Well, before I adjourn the meeting, I want to. Tonight's kind of a bittersweet night. It's a pretty exciting night for this board, but it's also an opportunity, time that we're going to have 2 people that this will be their last meeting with us. They're not gone, but their last official meeting, board meeting, and I just want to take some time to recognize them and give them their due for the time that they've spent here. And the first one I want to do is Carol Roper. Carol, come up here, please. Can I stand? Can you hear me? That'd be better. Carol, come here. Everybody knows Carol. She's trained more superintendents and more board members than anybody that I know of, probably. And she's been here 30 years, 35 years, 36 years. Board secretary for almost 18. So she's seen things come and go, happen, not happen, more than anybody. And I know she's kept many a board member straight and walking the fine line, and we will miss her significantly. Just your presence, your professionalism, and your smile, and your personality. I mean, she's pretty special when you come in here, and I can tell you as a new board member, you know where to go first thing to find out what's going on and what I need to be doing, and you go right here to this person. And I learned that very quickly, and a few Butterfingers help. Don't they?
They do.
A package of Butterfingers.
I got several today.
So with that, Carol, I want to give you some flowers
Oh, well, thank you, dear.
and a card and wish you the the best, and do a little traveling, burn some gas for us.
Yeah, I will.
Come back and see us
I will.
and do that.
I will.
So,
Thank you very
Carol,
much.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll give you an opportunity if anybody else wants to make a comment. Bruce, anybody want to? Go ahead, Bruce. You've been there with her.
No. I see what she's in. No.
We always obey Carol.
Oh, that's right.
It's that
Good enough
furrowed-
for me.
it's that furrowed brow. It's like, oh, okay.
Sorry, you do exactly what Carol asked you.
Yeah.
No.
Next, I want to recognize a great, great friend and a great, great board member over the last 10 years, and that's Dr. Holman. And come here. And he's been an incredible mentor for a lot of us. And just, you know, still water runs deep. And this gentleman has been such a resource for this board, this community, our kids, what he's done for the kids in Springfield. And I know he won't go away. I know he'll stick around and I hope bug us a little bit. But his time on the board, I can't go through all the things that have happened in that 10-year, but I know he's done and had a hand in so many things for this district over the last 10 years and truly has made a difference. You can say that as a cliche sometimes, but this man has made an incredible difference in this board, this district, this community. And I want to tell a story. And a few of us, Dr. Ritter and Dr. Prater, you may have heard this weekend. But when I heard this story, Dr. Ritter and I looked at each other and thought, Dr. Holman, immediately when this came to mind. And it's about a little boy who's walking down the road in this cold winter day. It's cold, and he runs, and he finds a little bird that's laying on the side of the road that's essentially half frozen. Still alive, but half frozen. As compassionate he is, he's trying to, and confused, what can I do for this little bird? What can I do to help this bird? So he's glancing around, what can I do? Over a little ways, he sees a cow pasture and a lot of cows out in there doing things that cows do, leaving deposits in the field and things and residue in the field and things like that. So he thinks what this bird needs is warmth. So here he marches off to the field and plugs this little bird into a fairly large pile of warm residue. Is that the way I can say that? Politically correct? Up to its neck. And then the boy leaves, walks off, hoping that the bird will survive. Well, a few minutes go by, several minutes go by, and the bird starts feeling a little better, starts thawing out. Starts chirping a little bit, kind of gets a little spunkier and a little livelier, breaks out into a huge song, singing, chirping, and making all kinds of noise and feeling better. Along comes a fox, snaps the bird right out of there, eats the bird right up. The moral to the story is what it comes, is it's not always your enemy that puts you in it, and it's not always your friend that takes you out of it. And when you're up to your neck in it, it's probably better not to sing about it. So words of wisdom like that have come from Dr. Holman, and we truly are blessed by being with him and his presence here. And I do want to introduce his family. His wife Nancy, son Chris are here, and I know they've been incredibly supportive of your time on the board. And we have a plaque that I'd like to present to you, and then I'm going to give a chance for anybody else that wants to speak to do that. To honor your service to the board, Springfield Public Schools, Michael Holman, 2002, 2011, Vice President in 2006. No, 2000. Could have made this bigger. Vice President 2003, sorry, President 2004 through 2006. Mike, it's been great.
Thanks, Jerry.
Enjoyed it.
Thanks,
Mike.
Jerry.
want to say something before I give Mike the mic?
I'll start. I want to thank Mike. Also, there are many positive things that have happened in this district since he's been on the board, from individual student programs to facilities that have been renovated and brand new buildings for kids, just too numerous to name those things that have happened. And things that happened before he was on the board that he initiated that have come to fruition and shine for the district. But I think I appreciate a lot of things about him, but two things. One, he sees the big picture. This isn't just about Springfield schools, it's about our community. And one cannot operate without the other being good. A good school system will be in a good community, and a good community will have a good school system. And he understands that and tries to make those connections out there so we're not sitting on an island trying to make that happen. The other thing is I really appreciate that every time I call him, I get an open and honest answer on how he feels, whether it agrees with mine or not. And I appreciate that, and I never had to question about how he felt. And we had many good discussions over some Cokes after the after the meetings, and I appreciate the time he was willing to spend, and I appreciate his family sharing him.
Thank you, Bruce.
Ms. Gallen.
Well, Mike and I were friends before we served on the board, but I remember the first time I decided to run, I had heard that Mike was going to run too, and I went up and was talking to him, and he says, well, you know, Chris, I'm running to win. And I thought, that's the kind of tenacity that Mike Homan has. Well, he did win that time, and I didn't. And but the next year I ran and earned a seat on the board, and from that time on, grew to really respect the man he is. He is politically savvy, but not ideologically driven, which I think is incredibly important for this board. He is confident but humble. He's serious but very funny. And he's straightforward but flexible. And I'm going to miss your wisdom. I'm going to miss your humor. You know, we've taken it on the chin a little bit lately for not being as in being too much in harmony with one another on votes. But I will say that there are times when Mike and I were on different sides of a vote that I thought to myself, wonder if I thought this one through as well as I thought I had, because your thoroughness and your just your intellect has really been a valuable asset to this board, and we're going to miss that. I know you'll use it in other ways, but to look around this district and see what has happened in the last decade in terms of programs and facilities, and it's from east to west, north to south, poor children, rich children, and everybody in between has really benefited from your commitment to this district and to this community, and I really appreciate it. So.
Thank you, Chris.
So many of the things that everyone's talking about, I won't repeat, but for me, and from a personal standpoint, Mike and I had the conversation that when I became a member of this board, I really didn't know Mike Holman very well, and he didn't know me. But I had the good fortune of being seated to his left. And some of you may observe him and think that he has a very dry sense of humor, and he does. And there have been times when we have shared some of that at the board table where I thought we were going to get in trouble. And you must find humor in these meetings and some of the situations we face, but it is the wisdom and the guidance and the mentoring that I appreciated so much, because as Chris said, at times you would say, wait a minute, what am I missing? And I can tell you that Mike Holman was someone that I took that question to, and I trusted it. We maybe didn't agree, but I trusted his opinion and his perspective. And the best part of all of this is we're friends, and I will cherish that. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Chief.
I'll just chime in with what everybody else has said. When I first came on this board, Dr. Homan was my first president, and the leadership and professionalism that he showed as president, I think, was wonderful. As Bruce said, whenever you asked Mike something, he told you what he felt, and that's kind of a rare commodity in today's world. But Mike is a straight shooter, and I think he always has been, at least as long as I've known him, certainly on this board. But professional all the way through, which I've certainly appreciated. I think Bruce touched on the idea of, kind of seeing that big picture, and I think you did, Mike, and I think that we all benefited by that ability to kind of to see that some of these smaller issues were small issues, and they weren't the things we needed to spend a lot of time on. So I appreciated your ability to kind of parse out the things that we needed to spend time on and the things that we really needed to just get off our plate. So thanks for your service, and good luck with having some extra time on your hands.
Thanks, Andy. Dr. Prater.
Well, about 11 years ago, Mike and I were sitting in the doctor's lounge at the hospital drinking bad coffee, and I said to Mike, I said, in the back of my mind, I've been thinking about the school board. And Mike said, well, I have too, and I'm going to run next year. And I said, that's good. You'll do a far better job in that role than I ever will. Well, little did I know how right I was, and I think I've learned more from you, Mike, before I came on the board and since I've been on the board than I ever thought I would. And I only hope, in fact, I know that to get people to say this many nice things about me when I retire, I'm going to have to pay them first. So thank you very much for your service.
Actually, Tom, I remember that a little different. We were talking about school board, and we said we had to run for school board, and you said you first. That's how it really happened.
If I may, I'd like to say just a couple of things. First of all, Nadia and I'd like to thank you for inviting us to Springfield. Needless to say, the experience has been awesome. And I think Mike is a guy I'll call, and within minutes I'll have an answer. And I know it's going to be the right answer. The level of intelligence and what I would call a very acute sense of intelligence, covered with what I would call a real dry sense of humor that I was hearing earlier. But really, I really appreciate it. But the other thing that I think that's really important that people don't realize about Mike Homan is that he's visionary, he's very strategic, and he's way ahead of everybody. And you can count on that, and that's why we always turn to Mike to help us with our strategic thinking and our strategic planning. So I know you impacted Mr. Manus in many different ways, and I don't want to describe how, but in many ways as far as communications is concerned, but also to help us put together a strategic plan. So I want to thank you, and I want to wish you well, and I want to thank your family. I think you have a wonderful family, and I understand now why you have the love in your life, and that is because of your wife, Nancy. She's a jewel. And of course, Chris, who really is not very organized, from what you tell me, but is very, very sharp. And of course, 2 daughters that are doing extremely well. So I think the products of your marriage is also something that we realize in our schools. So I want to thank you.
It's all yours, Dr. Holman.
Well, man, I tell you, there for a minute I thought I died. But thankfully that's not the case, because first pitch is in about an hour and 5 minutes. I also figured if Carol was leaving, there was no need for me to stay around. So, well, they say that time flies whether you're having fun or not. And certainly I think that must be true. For the most part, I really have enjoyed my time on the board. It's been a good experience for me. Certainly there have been those times that have been difficult. We've been forced to make decisions largely for reasons beyond our control, which we knew were not good for the district or not good for our kids. and I can tell you those times are not so much fun. When I joined the board 9 years ago, we had a number of serious challenges that faced the board. Our facilities were in need of significant repairs or renovations. Student achievement and class sizes were not where our community wanted them to be. Staff and teacher salaries and benefits were not competitive. And the community at that time really had little faith that the Board of Education or the administration had the ability to do anything about it. I ran for the board because I believed I could make a real and positive difference for our children in our district and our community. As I complete my service on the board, I hope that that's been the case. During my tenure on the board, we passed 3 bond issues, including one which at the time was the largest bond issue passed in the state of Missouri. This allowed us to make significant strides in improving the facilities across the district. In particular, I'm proud of the renovation and transformation of Central High School, Parkview High School, Cherokee Middle School, and McGregor Elementary School. We have a lot of excellent new facilities now, including Hickory Hill School, David Harrison Elementary, and Wilson's Creek School. We have made less extensive but still significant upgrades at almost every other school in town. And we are now at the point where every classroom building in our district will be air conditioned. Our new administrative facility represents a vast improvement over the old Kraft Administrative Center. But of course, we all know it's not just about the buildings. It's about what goes on in those buildings. The facilities do send a message to those who labor in them, though. It shows them that they are important and deserving of a decent place in which to learn. I firmly believe that learning is enhanced when appropriate facilities are conducive to learning. Working with the administration, faculty, and staff, the board has had high standards for student achievement, utilizing data-driven decision-making when setting our priorities and policies. Reducing class size has been particularly important to the board, and we constantly strive to keep this moving in the right direction. Special programs, including the expansion of IB, which is near and dear to my heart, the WOLF program, Middle College, and others have broadened opportunities for our students. Student achievement has improved, attendance is up, and the graduation rate is improving. We have passed levy increases which have allowed us to increase teachers' salaries and benefits. Unfortunately, financial support from the state has not kept pace with our local effort in funding these areas. There's still much work to do. Ultimately, however, our community will have to bear responsibility for the type of schools it wants and is willing to pay for. Perhaps I am most proud of the credibility and level of trust which the board has been able to reestablish with our community over the past 9 years. None of the accomplishments that I mentioned would have been possible without the involvement and support of our community. Surveys of our stakeholders consistently reveal increasing levels of trust in the Board of Education as we set policy, manage the finances, and chart the future direction of the district. Certainly, I don't want to give the impression that I did any of this alone. I'm deeply indebted to the administration, the faculty, and staff for their commitment to excellence in education. I would especially like to acknowledge Dr. Norman Ritter. He's one of the smartest, most capable, and most caring people that I've ever had the privilege to work with, and I thank you for that. But I particularly want to single out my fellow board members for my admiration and appreciation. Whether they're seated here with me tonight or have served with me on previous boards, these are some of the most dedicated and committed people with whom I've ever had the privilege to serve. These are volunteers who take time from their work, their families, from their precious few leisure hours, and give themselves selflessly to the children of our community. The hours are long and the tasks are difficult, but they never waver from what they honestly believe is best for our schools and best for our children. Even when we have disagreed on specific issues, I have never doubted their good intentions or their pureness of heart. It has been an honor and a privilege to serve with each of you. I wish you the best going forward. I also want to extend my best wishes to my successor, Mrs. Frederick. I know she'll provide excellent leadership for our district. I would be remiss if I did not express my gratitude to my wife, Nancy, for her encouragement, her support, and her wise counsel as I pursued my work on the board. Her commitment to excellence in public education is at least as deep as mine, and her advice was invaluable. She commiserated with me in my frustrations. She celebrated with me in my successes. She's cheerfully accepted the long hours required by my board responsibilities. And in fact, when I told her I was going to have more spare time now that I was going off the board, she encouraged me to run again, actually. I'm also quite proud of my children, all of whom graduated from Springfield Public Schools. They were the inspiration for my board service. Their education here provided a foundation for their successes in higher education and in life. I believe no other school district could have prepared them as well. I want all children to have this same opportunity. When I decided to run for the Board of Education, I simply wanted to make our school district better for the children of our community. All the work that I've done here on the board was done with that simple thought in mind. It is my hope that the district will be judged better for my service. It is now up to the rest of you to continue the work that we have started. It won't be easy, but there's not a more important endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Holman. Just as a note, after the reorganization meeting, there will be some goodies and cookies and stuff over there before the 7:05 first pitch. Okay. That's all we have for the special meeting. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn. Everybody in favor? Aye.
Yes.
Okay, I thought so.
We had an A down here.
There was
Is an A? Okay, just,
For the record.
we are
unanimous?
adjourned.
Record.
Okay. Organizational meeting to order. Let the record show that all board members are present. First item of business is 2.01, and that is to receive and accept the election results. So is that Dr. Ritter?
Do we need a motion?
Could you just go ahead and take a motion?
Second.
Okay. Have a motion by Dr. Holman, a second by Ms. Twitty that the board accept and order file the certification of the clerk of Greene County of the results of the school election held Tuesday, April 5th.
I'm sorry, who made the second?
Ms. Twitty? Longer whip, Carol. Okay. Okay, we have voted yet. Mr. Osborne?
Aye.
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 Now we adjourn, right? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn? Okay. Who's this? What's this?
It's so moved.
Okay.
Sorry.
Ms. Twitty, all in favor? Say aye. Aye. Okay. That's not me. Okay, now we reconvene. Now you can leave, Mike.
I want to, first of all, take this opportunity to wish Denise Frederick and her family the best in the next 3 years. The journey will be, I can guarantee it's going to be fun. Okay. It's up to you to measure that fun, but anyway, it'll be fun. Also, I want to thank Carol Roper. The second time she retired and she came back to help us, and I think she did an excellent job, does an excellent job. One of her primary tasks is, of course, to take care of her husband, and I know he treasures that in most ways. The other thing I want to say at this time is I want to thank Richard Struckoff for all of the work that he does as far as staying on top of this, because I know anytime I call him, he knows he has all the facts. And I don't know how close you came to predicting this election, but I think it was pretty close. So thank you very much. So on that note, board, well, first of all, we have to swear in, I believe. Yes, yes, we need to have Denise up here.
Waiting for Carol's permission.
Yes. Come on up, Richard. Or Mr. Struckoff, I'm sorry. And Tom?
Newly elected candidates, stand here and face your constituents, if you would. And while we're waiting for them to assemble, I'll admit that I went to the old building.
Which is no longer there.
No longer there.
I was going to ask if the door worked.
Just a lot of nice grass there now. You ready to take your oath? Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Missouri, and I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of school director in and for the school district of Springfield R12 to the best of my ability, so help me God. Congratulations.
Good job, sir. Getting it? I gotta get over that screen. Gotta get over that screen. I just gotta get over that screw. But there you go. Congratulations. Before I begin, I'd like to have, if it's okay with Dr. Frederick, if she'd introduce her family, please.
I have my sister is here. I have an uncle here. My husband is here.
Where are they at? I don't.
Oh, right over here. If you please stand.
Yeah, there we go.
And my stepson is here in the back. And I have numerous friends that I count as family here as well. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Now, if we could have Dr. Prater introduce his family, please.
Well, thank you. I think my wife, Kim, who was here with me 3 years ago, and so was my daughter, Bryn, who's 32 days away from graduating from Central High School. She's not counting. And also my parents, Bill and Marie Prater, who've been lifelong residents of Springfield. So I want to thank all of them for coming.
Okay. Are we ready now? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call for nominations for board president, accept those nominations, and then we will vote. And then after that, I'll turn it over to the newly elected president, and we will proceed to select the vice president, and also we will select the secretary, and that'll be for a one-year term, because usually we do it two years at a time. So we will not be selecting a board treasurer at this time. So to start with, is there a nomination for board president? Chris, tell him.
Dr. Ritter, I'd like to nominate Dr. Tom Prater for president of the board.
Okay. Dr. Prater. And then are there any other nominations for board president? Repeating, is there any other nominations for board president? Be none. Okay, we will need a roll call to support the nomination. So those in favor, we'll start with Mr. Hosper.
Aye.
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 All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, well, congratulations, Dr. Prater.
Well, thank you for your support, and also a big thanks to Mr. Lee for handling this role for the past 2 years. He's been a great president for our board and has been a wonderful mentor for me. I can't imagine doing this without having served as vice president under Jerry Lee for the past 2 years. So thank you very much. Vice President, is there a nomination for Vice President?
Before we do that, could I want to make just a statement, if I could, or maybe ask board members a question here. We've had a process or a practice, basically, since I've been on the board, and that's been a while, that people serve as vice president and then as president of the board. And I think that's been real good for the board because it's given us experience in leadership. It's given people an opportunity to serve, but not serve too long so that it becomes a control issue. And that has seemed to work well. And then another unwritten, I guess these are all unwritten rules because I don't think they're written down anyplace. Because I've served as vice president and president, I don't think there's anybody on the board when I served as an officer. I can't express an interest to serve again. And I don't think that's quite right. I really don't think that should be a written or an unwritten rule. If I would like to serve again, I think I should have the opportunity to put my name out there. And we've discussed this, Tom, and I'm not trying to break the rules now, but I really do think there needs to be a discussion about that because I think it's served the district well, and I think we need to talk about that. And if the majority of the board thinks that if years ago you did that, but that disqualifies you, then I can go along with that. But I don't think that's what should happen. And I also think we should have some type of description of duties of president and vice president. I think they ought to be pretty broad, but I think board members should understand what to expect from an officer, and an officer should understand what their role is with other board members. And I think that can be a retreat issue or it could be at the end of some board meeting sometime, and we ought to look at those because I can't remember any time we've ever looked at those.
Thank you, Mr. Renner. Is there a nomination for Vice President?
Could I make a quick statement in line with Bruce's comments and asking for a discussion on this, because I think the board needs to have this discussion, and I'd like to have the discussion prior to the nominations for Vice President. We just heard our President talk about the importance of serving as Vice President before he ascended to the presidency, and I think it's important. When I came on this board, Dr. Holman was President and Chris Callan was Vice President, and when Dr. Holman stepped down, there wasn't much of a thought by anybody as to who should succeed Dr. Holman because Chris had served as president. And I think that was a process that we as a board, whether it was explicit or implicit, we all agreed to. We put aside whether or not perhaps we saw eye to eye on 100% of the issues and decided that was kind of the process that was in place. And the same thing happened when Jerry Lee succeeded Chris as president, that Jerry got to serve as vice president with an eye toward taking leadership of this board and being ready to do so when his time came. And again, when he had ascended to the presidency, there wasn't discussion amongst the board because that was the way we had done things. So, and tonight we once again follow that script. of somebody ably serving as vice president and being prepared to take over the reins as president. We're in a position where we've got all sorts of issues in front of us. I mean, we always have issues as board members, but I certainly don't know that we've had this confluence of issues that we have right now, with an audit ongoing, with the budget issues that we have, with leadership going forward of the district itself. So I think we entered a process, we started the process, and we follow that process. And I'd like to have a discussion whether or not it is a process. And if it's not a process, then that's fine. I mean, we can decide that's really not the way we want to do it. We just did it because we'd always done things that way, and or whether we think it's an important part of the puzzle, the important part of being a high-functioning board, and we strive for continuous quality improvement. I think, even though it's not written, perhaps that's a piece of that puzzle. And so I'm not sure, as I sit here now, whether the board wants to continue to follow that process. And so I would like to have some discussion at the board table prior to the nominations for vice president, because I think I'd like to know what other board members think about that piece of the puzzle.
I think this is something that I would recommend we take up at maybe a retreat or a strategic planning session. I don't think we can have a agenda item discussion on something that hasn't been posted on our agenda. And this is, as I understand it, an organizational meeting, not a sitting board meeting. So I think we could have that discussion, but probably aren't able to have it tonight.
You don't think there's a way to have a discussion about who's going to be vice president of this board?
I think there's a if you want to have nominations for vice president, I think we're free to do that. If we want to discuss the process that's involved in future board leadership roles, I think we're going to have that as an agenda item at a future board meeting or a board retreat to stay clear of the need for mandatory posting of agenda items. I mean, am I on track with that? I don't want to stray into uncharted waters where we're talking about an agenda item that we haven't posted on the agenda.
Yeah, I think once there would be nominations, you could speak, there could be discussion on the merit of the nominations, but I think I would agree with you that
I think the process
the actual process would have to be posted.
Yeah. So we probably need to move to nominations, and then we can discuss nominations as they come up. Are there any nominations for vice president?
I nominate Andy Hosmer.
Mr. Hosmer. Are there any other further nominations for vice president?
Nominate Jean Twitty.
Mrs. Twitty. Are there any further nominations for vice president? Okay, seeing none, the nominations will close. We'll take them in the order that they were nominated.
Can we ask questions?
Well, by Robert's rules, once a nomination doesn't require to be seconded and there's no discussion, the discussion is the vote. So we can suspend Robert's rules and discuss each nominee if that be the prayer. It takes a 2/3 vote technically of the board to do that, but we could do it by consensus. I don't get much of a consensus. Okay. All those in favor of we'll start with Mr. Hosmer. All those in favor of Mr. Hosmer, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Well, actually, we only have 2 ayes, so. All those in favor of Mrs. Twitty, aye.
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 Did you get those, Carol? Good. So the board vote supports Mrs. Twitty for vice president. Is there a nomination for board secretary?
I nominate Kathy Luton.
Are there any other nominations for board secretary?
Carol Roper?
He has to decline.
I have a nomination for Mrs. Luton and a nomination for Mrs. Roper.
I'm joking about that.
Any other nominations? Vote for Mrs. Luton. We'll start with Dr. Frederick.
Aye.
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 And a reminder, this is a one-year term that's filling the unexpired term of Mrs. Roper, the current board secretary. There's no other business for the organizational meeting. Reminder that we have a meeting next Tuesday on the 19th, the combined study session and regular meeting. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Hosmer?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much.